From suffering, the strongest souls are formed. The greatest characters are etched with scars. Khalil Gibran. The strongest souls rarely bloom from peaceful, gentle days. They are forged in the relentless forge of suffering. Suffering arrives without warning and without waiting for you to prepare. It crashes in, shatters the old structure, and forces your heart to rebuild itself from the pieces. Pain is a conversation you cannot walk away from. It strips away the thin shell of confidence and drags you face to face with your most fragile corners. The fear of abandonment, the feeling of helplessness, and the limits of who you thought you were. In that moment of seeming weakness, a quiet choice appears. You can shrink back, build rigid walls of defense, or dare to open your heart, accept the wound, and grow. The truly strong are not those who have never been wounded, but those who refuse to let the wound become a chain that holds them prisoner. The scars in those words are not just traces of pain, they are living proof of a soul that has come back to life. A scar no longer burns like a fresh wound, yet it quietly reminds you that you once shattered and still stood. Like the growth rings on an ancient tree, each band marks a bitter winter that has passed, building quiet strength and profound depth. A great character is the same, not flawless perfection, but a work that has endured trial, cracked yet never collapsed. Suffering is not the final period in a person's story. It is only a comma on the journey toward greatness. It does not automatically turn you into a legend, but it offers a priceless chance to become one if you dare to look it in the eye, reflect deeply, and keep moving forward, carrying those scars like silent medals of growth. Inside or outside the ring, falling is never wrong. What's wrong is staying down on the ground. Muhammad Ali. There are moments in life when people fall not because they are weak, but because they dared to step into a ring far beyond their familiar limits. The real pain is not in the fall itself, but in choosing to stay down, turning failure into a hiding place instead of a launching pad. When you stumble, it whispers, "Stop, this is enough." But that very voice is an invisible cage, trapping your potential inside a rotting comfort zone. A fall is like a crack in the shell of pride, painful yet necessary, because only through that crack can the light of new awareness slip in. The strong are not those who have never fallen, but those who rise even when their knees are shaking, their eyes still sting, and their pride is still bleeding. A fighter lying on the canvas is the living symbol of a common state of mind, knocked down by reality. But what defines a person is not the punch that floored them, it is the next decision, to lie there and complain, or to push up and stand again, even if only to fall once more. Each time you rise, you rebuild your identity, becoming deeper, tougher, and closer to the true essence of strength. Failure is not the end. It is an invitation to begin the journey of becoming. Lying down is instinct. Standing up is a choice of will, and it is in that choice that a person discovers dignity, resilience, and their own brilliant light. You may have to fight many times to win, Margaret Thatcher. Some victories are not handed over after a single swing. They are sharpened through hundreds of collisions with reality. You may have to fight many times to win is not just a reminder of persistence. It is a deeper truth. People do not grow in the moment of victory, but in the repeated cycle of falling, adjusting, and rising again. Each battle tests your identity, wears down the proud ego, exposes your fears, and stretches your old limits until they ache. The mind often longs for a quick, clean victory straight out of a fairy tale. But reality is a long war in which every fall teaches you more about yourself, why you are weak, what you fear, and what you still lack to keep going. Fighting many times is not a sign of weakness. It is proof that you have never given up on becoming a stronger version of yourself. A sword is forged in fire. It does not become sharp after one heating. It must be hammered, heated, red hot, and quenched in cold water countless times. People are the same. Each battle reshapes you, painful yet necessary. And one day, victory arrives, not like magic, but as the inevitable result of never quitting. If you are still fighting, understand that you are moving closer to victory. Not because you are not good enough yet, but because you are in the process of becoming worthy of that victory. What matters is not what you have done, but what you could have done if you had allowed God to lead His will in your life. A.W. Tozer. People often feel satisfied or tormented by what they have already done, forgetting a deeper dimension, the possibilities that have never been opened. Those words are not a scolding, they are a wake-up call. They are like standing before a door you have never opened, behind which waits a more complete version of yourself, stronger, clearer, more meaningful, yet you turned away out of fear or the need to control. The craving to be in charge, to draw your own map of life. But that very control can become an invisible limit, trapping you in the same familiar circles. When you let go and allow a greater will to guide you, whether you call it God, destiny, or the deeper order of the universe, you do not lose yourself. You expand. The less you cling to the small ego, the closer you come to your true potential. Life is like a river. When you swim against the current, you waste energy just to keep from being swept away. But when you learn to flow with the current, you stop struggling for survival and begin to discover lands you could never have reached before. What you have done is only the trace of limited choices. What you could have done is the open sky of faith, of guidance, of a journey larger than yourself. The question is no longer, what have I achieved, but who have I allowed myself to become? And sometimes the answer lies in the courage to release your small will and step into a path where you are not only living, you are being led to become. It is your reaction to adversity, not the adversity itself, that will determine how the story of your life unfolds. Dieter F. Uchtdorf. There is a common illusion people cling to, that adversity itself writes their destiny. But in truth, adversity is only the setting a cold stage where the story remains blank, waiting for your reaction to fill it. Those words are a sharp reminder that you are not the victim of circumstance. You are the author of how you face it. When difficulty strikes, we often shrink, make excuses, blame others, or sink into helplessness. That is a natural reflex. But if you stop there, you unconsciously hand the steering wheel of your life over to the very adversity you face. One storm can knock down two people. One lies there recounting the injustice of the wind, the other stands, learns to read the wind's direction, and rebuilds the boat. The difference lies not in the storm, but in inner strength and the choice of reaction. Reaction is not only outward action, it is the way you interpret what is happening. The same failure can be seen as proof you are not capable or as precious data to adjust and evolve. That very interpretation shapes your emotions, and emotions drive your behavior, creating a chain reaction that decides the direction of your life. Adversity is like a distorted mirror. It does not show your true self. It magnifies what you carry inside. If fear is inside, you will see yourself as small. If will is inside, you will see opportunity hidden in the chaos. Therefore, adversity has no absolute power. It only amplifies your reaction. The story of your life is not written by what happens to you, but by how you answer what happens. And in every reaction, no matter how small, you are quietly deciding who you will become. Do not judge me by my success. Judge me by how many times I fell and got back up. Nelson Mandela. There is a shallow but common way of seeing life, measuring a person by the peaks they reach, as if success were the only measure of worth. A person's true value lies not in the final result, but in the ability to recover a kind of mental muscle that is only trained through pain. Success is often a glossy surface that hides the cracks beneath. People see the victory but not the long nights of self-doubt, the failures that shattered self-worth. Meanwhile, every fall is a raw conversation with yourself, where you cannot pretend to be strong or hide from the truth of your limits. And it is exactly at that rock bottom moment that you must choose: shatter or rebuild. Rising is not a simple action. It is an existential decision. It demands that you gather the fragments of your faith and rekindle your will when everything seems exhausted. Each time you stand up, you rewrite the definition of yourself. No longer the one who was defeated, but the one who refuses to remain in defeat. And over time, that chain of falling and rising creates a resilient identity that no easy success could ever give. An ancient tree is not made strong by sunny days, but by the storms that tested every fiber of its wood. People are the same. Your worth is not in never having fallen, but in how many times you rose from the ground, covered in dust, wounds, and a will that grew harder. So if you must judge a life, do not look at the peak where they now stand. Look at the number of times they climbed back up from the abyss into the light. I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. Maya Angelou. There is a thin but decisive line between being changed and being diminished. You cannot control what happens to you, but you have complete power over what it will do to you. Life does not ask your opinion before it throws its blows, but it always waits for your answer after each blow. Change is inevitable. Every event is like silent acid or a refining fire reshaping your inner structure. But diminishing is a subtle choice. It happens when you allow pain to define you, when you identify yourself with the wound and slowly lose faith in your own power to be reborn. Many people do not collapse because of the event, but because they remain stuck in the role of victim, letting time turn the wound into their identity. But those who refuse to be diminished understand they may be reshaped, yet they do not have to disappear. They are like metal tempered in fire. Each heating rearranges their structure, perhaps more bent, yet stronger. They do not deny the pain or pretend they are unaffected. They simply refuse to let the pain steal their core value. A river meets a boulder. It cannot avoid changing course, yet it does not stop or dry up. It bends, finds a new path, and continues its journey. People are the same. You may be bent by circumstance, but you are not forced to break. Strength is not in remaining exactly as you were, but in passing through the ordeal without losing your essence. You may become profoundly different, quieter, even carrying scars that cannot be erased, but you are still you, only a version that has been tested by fire and chosen not to melt. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the realization that something else is more important than fear. Ambrose Redmoon. People often misunderstand courage, thinking it is a state of having no fear at all, a kind of numbness in the face of danger. Fear is always present. It is simply placed lower in your inner hierarchy of values. Courage is not the silence of fear. It is the louder voice of something greater that drowns it out. Fear is a primal reflex. It protects, warns, and keeps us in the safe zone. Yet precisely because of that, it can easily become an invisible chain, holding us in smaller versions of ourselves. When facing a big choice, love, commitment, change, fear always speaks first, like a strict gatekeeper. And in that moment, courage is not about shoving the gatekeeper aside. It is stepping through the gate even though your heart is pounding. A person stands at the edge of a chasm. Fear makes their legs tremble and paints every worst scenario. Yet on the other side is something, a dream, a loved one, a meaning in life powerful enough to make them willing to step forward. In that exact moment, they are not fearless. They simply decide that what they are moving toward is worth more than temporary safety. Courage is not the privilege of those who know no fear. It is the quality of those who know fear very well, yet still choose to act. It is a rearrangement of priorities in the soul, where values, belief, and meaning are placed higher than safety. And in each trembling yet determined step, people do not merely overcome fear, they overcome their old limits and become a larger, more alive, and more authentic version of themselves. No matter how many difficulties come, we must keep moving forward. That is the only way to keep the path clear. Greg Kincaid. There are seasons in life when difficulties do not arrive gently, but crash down like a flood, making every path feel blocked. The road does not close by itself. It is our stopping that slowly fills it with fear, procrastination, and doubt. When facing adversity, the natural reflex is to shrink back and wait until everything gets better before moving on. But the paradox is this: the longer you wait, the thicker the road becomes. Negative thoughts sprout like weeds, gradually blocking the view until you believe there truly is no way forward. Meanwhile, even the smallest, slowest action is like a machete clearing the way, opening space and breath for the mind. Moving forward does not always mean giant strides. Sometimes it is simply refusing to turn back, refusing to quit, refusing to stay paralyzed. Imagine a stream of water. If it stops flowing, it becomes stagnant and murky. But if it keeps moving, it purifies itself and finds its way out, no matter how complex the terrain. Movement does not only change the situation, it changes how you perceive the situation. Each step forward is a quiet affirmation that you still have the power to choose, the ability to act, and that you have not yet been completely defined by circumstance. And it is that chain of steps, imperfect and difficult, that keeps the path from closing and always leaves it open, even if only a small ray of light ahead. You do not step forward because the path is already clear. It is because you step forward that the path gradually reveals itself. The world breaks everyone, and afterwards some become strong at the broken places. Ernest Hemingway. The world does not operate as a safe shelter. It is a constant flow of collisions, and every person is wounded in some way. Pain is universal, but how people digest it is what divides their destinies. Not everyone becomes stronger after being hurt. Only those who dare to face it and transform it reach that point. The wound at first is always a point of weakness, where we easily shatter, shrink, and lose faith. Yet over time, if we do not run from it, that very weakest place becomes the strongest point of reconstruction. It is like a bone that once broke. When it heals, it can be thicker and harder than before. However, this does not happen automatically. It requires an inner process, enduring, understanding, and redefining the meaning of the pain. Many people are wounded and carry it like a crack that never heals, so every later collision breaks them further. But there are also those who choose to look straight at the wound, not to torment themselves, but to learn what it is teaching them. They do not deny that they were once weak. They simply refuse to let that weakness become their permanent identity. And it is in that process that they develop a special kind of strength, not outward hardness, but inner depth, empathy, and the ability to stand firm before the very things that once made them fall. A broken piece of pottery mended with lines of gold. The very cracks that once made it worthless now become the feature that makes it unique. People are the same, not strong in spite of their wounds, but strong precisely through them, different and deeper because of them. The world may wound you, almost nothing can prevent that. But whether you become more fragile or stronger at the very place you were hurt is a journey of choice. And in that choice, you do not merely heal. You are reborn,